to take a look at some of the very early history of Oregon City and Oregon. We're going to discuss the people who came here first and turned the light on for the rest of us. These were before the 49ers came to dig gold down in California. Although some of these people went down to California for a while and then came back to be some of Oregon's first settlers. I thought at first this would just be an ordinary video, but wow.
My name is Richard Matthews. I want to welcome you to the Dr. John McLoughlin National Historic Site. You are inside the Barclay House, and what I'm going to do is give you a summary or a short history of both houses. We have two houses here on the site, one of Dr. Forbes Barclay and one of Dr. John McLoughlin. So we're going to start with Dr. Barclay's house, since that's the house we're into. Now, Mr. Barclay was born in Scotland. He was born in the little Shetland Islands. He became a doctor through the Hospital of Edinburgh. Graduated in 1839, got on a ship, took about a 5.5-month trip, and came out here to a place called Fort Vancouver. Arriving at Fort Vancouver, he was under the leadership of Dr. John McLoughlin. Dr. McLoughlin gave him the opportunity to be the head of the medical department of the fort. Dr. Barclay served in that capacity until 1850, when he retired and moved to Oregon City. This house was built down on the river. It was built about where the bridge crosses the Willamette River in Oregon City. It was built there until 1938, when it was moved up here because it was in the way. They were going to preserve the house by saving it so it wouldn't be torn down to make room for the new bridge that was going in. It was moved up here in 1938 using 2 trucks. Arrived here and became the headquarters of the visitor center for the McLoughlin House National Historic Site. Anyway, Dr. Barclay married a French-Canadian and English lady named Pam Byrne. They had 7 kids together. Dr. Barclay's house, this house would have been divided into certain useful rooms. The one that we're sitting in would have been the coroner's room and the hospital. So he was a coroner here in Clackamas County for over 22 years. The room that we have our gift shop in would have been the pharmacy, and the room that we have as our office right now would have been Dr. Barclay's office. Dr. Barclay and Dr. McLoughlin were very close friends. In fact, Dr. Barclay was there the day that he died, serving at his gravesite, at his bedside. All right, so now we know a little bit about Dr. Barclay. Are there any questions? Well, let's get into Dr. McLoughlin. This is a picture of him.
Oh, yeah?
Dr. McLoughlin was born in the province of Quebec, a little town called Rivière-du-Loup. He was the oldest boy of 7 children. At the age of 14, he was put into apprenticeship, went to study under Dr. Fisher. At the age of 18, graduated as a full-fledged physician surgeon. Shortly after that, he went to work for the Northwest Fur Company. He was stationed at a small place called Fort William, Ontario. At Fort William, Ontario, he meets Marguerite and Alexander Mackay. He will be important later in his life. But he starts out as a young lad at 18. He's always struggling for money. Early in lots of letters that were written back and forth between him and his parents and his grandparents, he was always asking for money. So what was happening at that point, he decided, I just can't survive on what I'm making. And so he decided to become an administrator. Sometime around 1803, he became administrator for the company. and worked very hard and made it all the way up to a full partnership by 1821. Along the way, the Alexander and Mackay and his wife Marguerite and their 4 kids. Alexander took a job with the John Jacob Astor Group called the Pacific Fur Company, and they arrived out here at a little place called Astoria. And Alexander, of course, was killed by Native Americans. His son Thomas, who came along with him, was here when they arrived here in 1824. Dr. McLoughlin felt sorry for Marguerite. I think maybe sorry is not the word for it, but he befriended her and helped her raise the 3 daughters. All the 3 daughters of the Mackay daughters were all married and out on their own by the time Dr. McLoughlin came out here. Marguerite marries him. We don't know, I don't think she knew if her first husband was gone, died, abandoned her. But of course, in those days, the communication was not instantaneous like it is today. And so we don't know exactly, but anyway, she does eventually marry Dr. McLoughlin, and they had 4 kids together. So in 1821, the Northwest Company merges with the Hudson Bay Company. Dr. McLoughlin goes to London as part of the merging party and negotiates a treaty between to merge between the 2 companies, and he negotiates himself a pretty good job as a governor of one of the new districts that they're going to open. And that district was called the Columbia District. That's all the land from Alaska to California, the Pacific Ocean to the Rocky Mountains. Dr. McLoughlin was sent out here in 1824. He came out here with his wife, his 2 youngest children, which were 8 and 10 at that time, arriving here in November of 1824 after canoeing down the Columbia River from across Canada and down the Columbia River, arriving at the only place out here, which was Fort Astoria. A little history about Fort Astoria is it was an American fort, put in 1811. 1813, it was sold to the British because of the War of 1812. It was going to be taken away. The Northwest Company decided to buy it from the Astor Group instead of having the British government take it away from them. And so he came in, and so it was changed from Fort Astoria to Fort George. Dr. McLoughlin arrives at Fort George in 1824. Spends the winter. Does not like that. He had another reason. He wanted to build something on the north side of the Columbia River because a lot of the rumors going around was that the Columbia River eventually would be the boundary between the American and the British territory. And so he figured, I'll build something north of the Columbia River and it'll be in my territory. So he built Fort Vancouver in 1825. Now he's got things going. He's setting up trading posts. He's setting up fur posts. He's sending out brigades. He's doing a lot of work. He's doing everything he possibly could to make money for the company. One of the things that he did do is in 1829, he came down here to the falls on the Willamette River and created a small mill, a couple of mills, a warehouse, and a trading post, and called that little area Oregon City. So he actually founded the town of Oregon City in 1829. So Dr. McLaughlin's doing okay. He's working, things are going together, he's making lots of money for the company, everybody's doing a wonderful job. And then in 1842, there is a rumor that the Americans are coming. Here comes the Americans, they're going to come out and take some land. How would they do that? And that was that they actually promised the American people, every married couple, 640 acres of free land that they didn't even own. The British owned it. The Americans said, okay, just go out and take it. Well, the British government was not too happy with that, and they actually contacted Dr. McLoughlin and told him, when the Americans arrived, turn them around and send them home. We don't want them here. And of course, we all know that was not going to work. So, but kind of imagine yourself in Dr. McLaughlin's position. He's sitting over there at Fort Vancouver. He wakes up early one morning and he looks out on the yard around his fort, and here's 750 homeless people. A lot of people are under the misconception that the British Americans just came out here and walked right up to a piece of land and said, "Yippee, this is mine." It did not work that way. There was a lot of homeless people. They had no place to go. They didn't know where the good land was, and they were asking Dr. McLoughlin, "Where shall I settle?" And he did the best he could by saying, "How about settling south of the Columbia River?" And so he tried to do is manipulate as many people to go south of the Columbia River, still hoping that the British could stay in control of everything north. Well, that worked for a little while, until about 700, just imagine 750 and 1843. But in 1844, the 1200 showed up. Then he's got 1,200 homeless people to take care of. Then he's got 2,000 people to take care of in 1845. So 1845, he kind of realizes that everything's not going to go in the way he wants it to go. And he has been given a nice little letter from the Hudson Bay Company and the British government saying you're a traitor and you're no longer needed. So he moves to Oregon City and builds a fine little house that we have sitting right next door to us. That house was built in 1845 by Dr. McLoughlin down by the river. Now he built it down there for a couple reasons. One, that's where the main part of town was, and two, he had a negotiation. Well, he really didn't negotiate with Hudson Bay Company. He kind of said, "Hudson Bay Company, all that stuff that you own in Oregon City, you're going to lose to the Americans, so therefore, as a nice British guy, I'll take it for you." And he did. He took control of all the factories and the warehouses and the trading posts and everything in Oregon City and moved his house right in the middle of it. Well, he lived in that house until 1857 when he passed away of a heart attack at the age of 73. Now, there was one of those things that when he arrived here was one of the most difficult things for him. The Americans, even though he helped them, really didn't embrace his family that much. They had a lot of biases against him, and one of those biases was he was Catholic. One of them was he had more wealth than most. He also was a little British than most. But the number one that they picked on a lot of times was that his wife was half Native American. And they didn't want a Native American lady involved in the white woman society here in Oregon City. So it really, at first, he really didn't fit in, but he had one thing going in his favor, and that was that he owned all the industry in town. And so if he wanted to go to work for somebody, you guess who he had to work for, and that was Dr. John McLoughlin. So it worked out okay for him, and then he passed away in 1857. His wife died in 1860, and they were both buried at the Catholic Church here in Oregon City. The Dr. McLaughlin's daughter, Eloisa, had moved in with them. She moved in shortly after 1845. Her husband had killed himself, leaving her with 3 kids. So she moves in. "Hello, Daddy. Hi, I'm home." Comes in. And a couple years later, she marries another guy named Daniel and says, "Hello, Daddy, this is my new husband," and he moves in. And so then they had 3 more kids. So now he's got in the house, he's got him and his wife, he's got his son David, and then he's got Eloisa and Daniel and 6 kids. So the house got extremely crowded really quickly. But David was one of those adventurous ones. He went to the gold field in California. Came back with some gold, then he went back again, and so he was in and out a lot. Finally, David gave up gold mining and moved up into Idaho and married a Native American lady, and they had 9 children together. So Dr. McLaughlin's daughter and her husband moved out of the house in 1867 and went to Portland, taking all the goods in the house with them. And I'll stop there because we got to go move on.
Time, 18.
Well, actually, this was actually tea brick paper, these are tea bricks. And the Barclay family utilized the tea brick paper wrapping for the wallpaper of this particular room. This was Dr. Barclay's pharmacy in here.
Oh.
Grandfather, my dad, my grandfather, my great-grandmother was born here, and my great-great-grandparents came in 1844 on a wagon.
No kid.
No kid.
Yeah.
They actually settled near the little town called Reedville out in Hillsborough area.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, behind me is the graves of the Dr. John McLoughlin and his wife, Marguerite. The story goes, Dr. McLoughlin and his wife die. They are buried in the Catholic Church, which was straight down on the hill, on the riverbank from where we're standing.
Yeah.
Then, in 1948, the Catholics decided to tear the old church down and build a new church up here on the hill. So they dug the McLaughlins up, they moved them up here to the new church. Then they got in the way of the community center in 1970, so they dug them up for a second time, moved them over here. They've been here since 1970. So this is now their original actual burial spot.
Oh, yeah.
Now it says on the bottom of his gravesite, you can't read it anymore, it says, a pioneer and a friend to Oregon and the founder of this town, talking about Oregon City.
Oh.
There was an Ojibwa lady, and Marguerite is the French name for Margaret.
I told him I had
What we're going to do is we're going to sit here for about 5 minutes. Guys, I got to tell you, the house was, when Dr. McLoughlin built it, was down in front of the falls, about 100 yards this side of the falls. It stayed there until about 1903. It had different uses, but in 1903, according to the newspaper, it was a vacant building. And the house was in pretty sad shape. Now, there was a group of ladies in town, headed up by a lady named Eva Rimmery Dye. Now, Mrs. Dye was a president of the Oregon City Women's Club. She was a president of a whole bunch of different things. She was a writer, and she was very interested in Dr. McLoughlin. And she wanted to save the house for a memorial to him helping the American pioneers. So she thought that was an important thing that she did. And so in 1904 or 5, she started pushing the citizens of Oregon City to save the McLoughlin house. And so what she did is she went to the owner, who was a guy named William Hawley. Now, Mr. Hawley said, I'm not going to use the house. I need the property to expand my paper mill, but here's what I'm going to do. I'll let you have the house absolutely free. All you need to do is move it off the property. Well, that gave her a great idea. She came up here to the city of Oregon City, and this piece of property that we're standing on was actually given to the city as a park in 1851 by Dr. McLoughlin. And they said, well, wouldn't that be a fantastic place to put the house? So in 1909, they hired Mr. Baker and Mr. Hastings to move the house up here, 14 blocks down from the street and up the hill out here. So what they did is I'm going to have to show you pictures, so I don't know how you want to do those. This is a picture of the house being moved, prepared to be moved. It's going to be jacked up. They're going to put these metal rollers under it.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to take the house and they're going to put rollers on it, and they're going to roll it down Main Street and then come up the hill. Now, Mr. Baker and the Hastings, the contractors, said, well, you know what, we could do that whole job really easily using only one horse. So here's our one horse pulling the house up the hill.
Oh, bizarre. Yeah.
Now, what the horse is actually doing is he's turning the capstan winch, which you can see here embedded in the ground.
Oh, yeah.
And he's going in circles, and every time he goes in a circle, the house moves approximately 8 inches.
Oh, yeah.
Now, they all knew that there was going to be a narrow spot in the road. So they're coming up the hill. They get about halfway up, and then they knew that there was going to be a narrow spot. And so what they decided to do is counterweight the house by putting rock and sand on that side of the house. And then they literally took the house and shoved it out over the cliff. Hopefully they could keep it flat so it wouldn't fall down the cliff. And here's a picture of that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Have you been here before?
No.
Yeah.
That's neat.
Yeah.
10 days it took to get here. There's a multitude of different problems why it took so long, but they got it up here, and here it is being dedicated on September 5th, 1909 as a museum.
Be darn.
Wow.
Yeah.
Over the years, we've been very fortunate to come across his personal items. He did build Fort Vancouver. He had a lot of personal items there. When that fort was closed in 1860, all the items were moved to Victoria, Canada. And they set up there until 1938, when the people who owned it decided to sell it. The McLoughlin Memorial Association went up to Victoria and brought back 24 cases, crates of furniture from Fort Vancouver and the Hudson Bay Company. We have those in the house to this day. That table is Fort Vancouver, that's Fort Vancouver, the mirror's Fort Vancouver. They're all about 180 to 185 years old, which is pretty old for out here on the West Coast.
Yeah. Well, that's a coat rack, is it, or?
Yes,
Oh yeah. And you can see to get your hat on straight with the mirror, I guess.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's quarters over at Fort Vancouver.
Oh,
That
is
big
that?
mirror.
And you can imagine what that was used for.
Yes.
Yeah.
All the guys were seeing how cute they were, so they could be ready for the ladies when they came in that night. All right, let's head on into this room. The parlor. The little room over here, you'll see Dr. McLaughlin's desk. If you want to go ahead and take a picture of his desk over there.
Okay. Wow, what a fancy couch, huh?
That's called a horsehair couch.
Oh, really?
It's made of woven horsehair.
That piano.
This is what it feels like. You take that small desk in there, that's Dr. McLaughlin's desk. Dr. McLoughlin used that to, at the fort and used it here. The wall that it's sitting up against would not have been there in the day he lived here. This all would have been one continuous room because he mentions his wife using the other half of the room as a sewing area, and he loved to watch her sew. So, unless he had x-ray vision, I guess.
Yeah. Well, this is made of horsehair, you say?
Feel
Yes,
this.
there's a sample of it right here.
Feel this, Tom. I can't believe that.
What they would do is they combine
Feel
cotton
this.
and horsehair and
Right
make a
here.
fabric and
Feel like
then just
that.
put it over wood.
I'll be darned. Wow, what a neat thing. I've seen things done with human hair too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this side would have been Marguerite's sewing area. The sewing machine in there does not belong to McLaughlin's, but it was a very old one. It's an 1860 Florence sewing machine.
Wow, look at that sewing machine. That took talent to use that machine.
The
Yeah.
two round tables came out of Fort Vancouver. The little leaf table actually was Dr. McLaughlin's. He used it as a spare desk up in his room. This is a clerk's desk from over at the fort. And the piano, unfortunately, is not his. The house flooded 4 times when the house was down by the river. And one time the piano went down to Portland and never came back.
Oh, yeah.
And so we have, many years they were searching for a piano. And this piano was given to us by the grandson of a guy named Eugene Skinner, the founder of Eugene, Oregon.
Oh,
So that's Eugene Skinner's original piano.
oh,
From the
what a
18th.
beauty. Yeah.
Rocking chair. Got intricate work on it. So, whoops, excuse me.
Yeah.
By a guy named William Cosgrove. Space behind us would have been the pantry.
Oh.
And the kitchen was a separate building. The servants, he did have servants, would have brought the food in the back door, the one we came in, up underneath the stairs and into the pantry.
Oh, they had the kitchens a lot of times separate buildings
It
because
was
of
a temporary
fire.
solar building because of heat and the building.
Yeah.
And not only that, the bathroom, of course, was separate, the outhouse.
Oh, yeah. The trail to the bathroom.
Yes, trail out the back.
Yeah.
That's a Hudson Bay piece, and this is also a Hudson Bay piece.
Wow.
Yeah.
28, Dr. McLoughlin ordered a table from England. Came around the Horn, arrived at Fort Vancouver in 1829. He placed it in the chief factor's house over at the fort, and that was his visitors and his staff meeting table. This table is that original table. This actually pulls out to 20 feet, had 20 chairs at one time.
Wow.
This was a table that he ordered in 1828. It has seen a huge amount of Oregon history.
Oh, I'll bet you. Heard a lot of it. Go across it.
A lot of stories written right on that table.
Yeah.
The clock on the wall was actually a clock given to us by Governor Patterson of Oregon. It's from around the 1860s, made by Willard and Sons of Boston.
Oh. Yeah. Gaming table from Fort Vancouver?
Yes.
And what did they do with it?
It would lay straight out and they'd play games of whist and cards and dominoes or whatever.
Oh yeah. I put it on the computer to edit it.
Okay.
And
black stain, yeah.
wow. It's a wonder it didn't carry it away.
It didn't. That was the thing. They said that it just filled up with water and drained out.
Oh, I'll be darned. Yeah.
So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to let you go into each room and you can kind of.
Oh, wow.
Wow, look at
This
that.
is an 1850 British-made bed. It just fits the decor of the house. And the little cradle that you see right here belonged to his granddaughter, Eloisa.
Oh,
Isn't that nice?
yeah, isn't that?
2 months ago, our grandson's wife had a baby girl,
Mm-hmm.
and they got a little cradle.
All the furniture in the house has to be 1860 or older.
Wow.
So
Wow.
everything here is pretty much old. Hey, this.
What's this couch made of here then?
That was another horsehair couch.
Felt like it.
Oh yeah, I'll be darned. Yeah, you had to pull hair out of a horse's tail and mane, so you just will make something out of it. Oh, the boys on one side and the girls on the other, you say?
Yeah, that way they can throw things across the hall, right?
Right. Yeah.
The bookcase in the back belonged to Dr. McLoughlin. He did have one of the first libraries out there in the West Coast.
Oh yeah.
And this is a dresser from the Hudson Bay ship, the Beaver, which was the first steamboat here on the West Coast.
Oh.
It's a captain's nightstand. That's why it has an angle, so it fit up against the wall.
Uh-huh. How about the deer antlers?
It's part of the Harvey coat of arms. That'd be his daughter's second husband, Harvey.
Oh, yeah.
This is a velvet couch from the Victorian era.
Oh, yeah.
Here you got two styles of bed. You got the British-made bed in the front, and you got the American-style bed in the back. You see, one's a spindle bed, and one is a stand-up bed.
Yeah.
Aren't those nice?
Yeah, that's real
Look at that
nice.
spindle bed is really neat.
Yeah.
This is the one him and his wife both passed away in.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Was he quite tall?
6'4".
Well, I was going to say, I would have trouble getting in a bed like...
Well, they sat propped up because of Victorian customs. They propped up was safer and you breathe easier. The Anwar actually belonged to McLaughlin. That was their closet here.
Oh.
And this is his wife, Cheese Lounge, back here behind us.
Oh, yeah. And people just sit on that and read, or?
Well, ladies had all those corsets and hoops and all that stuff on there, and they came up there and said, I can't stand up anymore, I gotta faint. They called it a fainting couch, but I don't like that word. There's Dr. McLoughlin.
Those beds were up high.
That's the Catholic church where
the McLaughlins were originally buried. They were buried back here in the back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that was located down by the river?
Yeah, you go down here on Main Street, and you'll see the Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah.
It was right in that area.
44. And they were part of the gold rush or before?
No, they came before. They came out for the 640 acres of free land, and they arrived at Fort Vancouver in November of 1844, and Dr. McLoughlin assisted them in giving them some seed and some implements and gave him a suggestion where some good land was. And they took his suggestion and they moved out to where Aloha, Oregon is.
Oh,
And they settled on 640 acres out there, and they raised their 11 kids.
oh yeah. And now this was your great
They'd be my great-great-grandparents.
grandparents that
Yeah.
came here. Yeah.
Two greats,
So what year were you born?
in 1946.
Oh, I was born in 43.
So you guys are a little bit older than I am.
And I was born in 40.
Yeah.
Well, I got the McLoughlin Barclay House National Historic Site is open Fridays and Saturdays from 10 to 4. Our last tour would like to be right around 3:15.
Okay.